project, very high level. And then we will back to private zone. It's almost 4:30 p.m. IST. So we will start maybe another 30 seconds, 1 minute. Just give it last few seconds to participants. Yeah. Shall we start?
Yes, Sanjeev, I think we should start. Yeah.
I think we should start in the interest of time.
Yeah. And any questions on the chat, I'll keep on answering them. But yeah, you can
All
start,
right.
Sanjeev.
Yeah. Thanks, Saurabh. So we will start the project and the entire event that sort of we have organized. So we'll just do a sort of housekeeping and some sort of how we are going to run this project. So a bit of briefing, so you guys know what coming in the next few weeks to say. So people who have joined our project 1 and 2 or our boot camps, they are very well aware how we usually run them. But people who have joined recently, this group basically has people who have just signed up for project 3, where we will be setting up an organization, try to understand what goes into setting up entire AWS-based SaaS company. The other group is from our mentorship part, where we have like long-running program where we help them build complex projects. Every weekend we run some sessions with them. So there are a bunch of people from that part as well. And once the project is finished, then we will continue that mentorship program. It's a long-running program, and see if you guys are interested. Any of you, you can check that out as well. All our past projects, boot camps, future boot camps. We're starting a AWS boot camp shortly in February. So everything gets included for them. And it's only a weekend sort of thing where a lot of other things also we cover. What about this one? So how do we run this? We won't be getting into introductions and all sort of things. You guys, most of you are aware, myself, I'm Sanjeev, based out of Sydney, Australia. I'm a DevOps and cloud architect, mainly working on Azure and AWS. I'm joined by Saurabh, who is also based out of Australia in Melbourne. And he's also an enterprise architect and brings lots of experience in DevOps and cloud space. So we run this YouTube channel, and through that, we try to help community. We are trying to build a sort of community which is working on complex things. We have found that people are learning very basic things in the industry. We want to take that to next level, because when we interview people, when we try to hire folks, we struggle. They don't have the right sort of experience. So many of them reach out that they have done a basic course somewhere, or those misleading sort of courses which don't give the right level of information and right level of knowledge. That is the main problem that we are trying to solve, that make them job ready. So we are trying to build those complex scenarios, those complex setup, so that you can answer those things in the interviews. You can use those sort of skills at your day-to-day job. So by going through this project, you will come to know a lot of scenarios and things that are possible. A lot of people who are certified also don't even get to work on those areas. So that's the objective. At the same time, the challenge is that we also have to make it little simplified version of a complex project. So we try to simplify through some different mechanisms. So instead of creating complex Kubernetes cluster and taking you through a long, complex scenarios, we will try to work on a lot of concepts. The idea is you should know the possibilities in the cloud. What is possible? What would you do? What would you consult in if you encounter a specific situation? So that is the idea. We have around 80, 90, 89 people joined. So let me share my screen and show you how we're going to run this. Yes, recording will be provided. That's a very common question people are asking. Yes, every session will be recorded and it will be provided to the registered participants on your in the same WhatsApp group that you are part of. I'll just take 10-15 minutes initially to brief you what we're going to build, why we are building this, and that sort of thing. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
So we will try to set up a SaaS company in the cloud. That is the objective. So we will talk about what goes into setting up a company. But before that, I usually start with some sort of thoughts that, why we are doing this. I know a lot of you understand the value in doing a complex project or a project per se, because people lack that experience. Basic knowledge is just not enough. It's a quite an employer friendly market. They'll try to look for a perfect fit. So if you haven't worked on all the use cases that are possible in the cloud, you probably with just a basic zero to hero course, you can't do it, because those courses will be very high level. They will tell you those basic scenarios that, yes, create a EC2, create a website, run a pipeline and done with it. But they won't go next level. Cloud is getting older. It's not a new technology anymore. Myself working more than 6-7 years already. And I myself found that there were veterans at that time when I joined in. So it's an old technology and getting matured. So not knowing the best practices, the industry level experience, not going to go anywhere further. So you need to up your game. You need to build the complex projects, industry level projects, and understand the processes, how things work in an organization. And we'll talk about in later on where the gaps are, because you probably people do some practice and things. They will do it in one AWS account, one environment. They will assume that everything is production, and that's how they will proceed. And the interviews will usually focus on the good practices, best practices. What do you do in this scenario? It's very easy to learn cloud, but it's very difficult to implement in the cloud, because to achieve certain things, there are hundreds of ways possible. As a DevOps engineer, as a cloud engineer, as a cloud architect, you need to know the right path, the best possible path to your solution. And obviously, if you are fresher or somebody starting their career, don't stay fresher. Build such project. Nobody likes freshers, so don't be one of them. build such projects and highlight yourself as an experienced person. That is the reason why we are doing these sort of projects. Project is very suitable for all levels. Entry level people who are joining the industry, you should know basic AWS, basic DevOps concepts. We will be able to take it to next level. If you are an experienced IT professional switching to DevOps or cloud space, it's still relevant for you. Again, you should have basic knowledge. You should bring some knowledge, simple pipelines, simple AWS stuff you should know, and then we will add value. I have seen a lot of experienced IT professionals. They also have their day job experience, but still they lack good practices. They lack those additional things. So for example, if they are working on a specific tool or a specific technology, they don't get to explore additional things, how things might be working outside of their company. So it's even relevant for people who are experienced. Myself, like we discovered these skills, these possibilities after a while. It's not that day one we started working on it. Day one obviously is your compute, networking, those database, those are the basic services that you start with. But over a period of time, you start realizing that there are additional cloud services that are useful and that should be explored. How would we go about this? So we will conduct this weekly session. We will guide you what needs to be done. We will do part of the project because we have to make sure that you learn the concepts. We may not be doing a lot of automation from ourselves. So I'll be probably doing a lot of things on the console. A lot of things I will be show you how it works. What is expected from you is that you take that knowledge, you build that level over the next week. You come to that level that, yes, you have tried those things in your accounts, your hands-on experience. You build a good GitHub repository for that, and so that you can justify those sort of pipelines and stuff that we will be building. That is how the success looks like. That's how it will be useful. The third point is that at the end of the project, you should have a GitHub repository where you can show this project. You can talk about this project. You can highlight this in your resume that you have worked on a project, you have worked for a company where you have demonstrated their multi-account, multi-region capabilities, and you can use this as a 6 months, 1 year, 2 years level of experience that you have done it multiple times for that company, these activities, and it was quite a challenge and the issues that you faced. And basically, you should be able to explain this smartly in a way to justify quite a bit of experience. At least 6 months can go up to even 1 year, 1.5 years as well. Depends how closely you do it, how better you understand the concepts, how well you do it in your accounts. And when I say when you have to do it in your accounts, there will be a bit of cost associated with it. These are not, all of them are not free tier services. There will be cost, but it won't be that much. It would probably be in the range of $10, $15. That's one of the reasons we usually keep a fee for the project also. People, all of you have credit cards, access to credit cards, access to AWS accounts, because there will be some cost. It's not, you can learn Docker, Kubernetes, I mean, through Minikube and stuff on your laptop. You don't have to pay for that. But when you have to learn a cloud platform, unfortunately, there is no free way to do that, especially when you have to do slightly complex project. So we will end up, the overall project, you will end up spending some money, but it won't be that big. It's worth the effort. It's worth the kind of experience you are getting. And we will also try, even if you don't do it, don't implement it, we will try to make sure that, because we are demonstrating some of the concepts, you learn regardless of whether you do it or not. But the best results will be when you actually do it with your hands yourself. As I mentioned, recordings will be provided, so you can follow that along. The PDF that we will talk about, that will be shared in the group, and it will be updated every week. So it will be one version today. Some next 5 weekends, the other versions will evolve. And similar sort of pattern we will follow. You will get a Zoom link on your WhatsApp next Sunday, same time, and you guys just join that. So make sure you put your alarms or your reminders on your side, so you get reminded. The project we will be discussing has extensive use case. So we don't want to bring a project which is like does not cover all sort of aspects. So the project that we will be talking, we calling it a SaaS company, but you can apply it in banking, financials. A lot of large organizations, mid-tier, all those companies will encounter these issues and would look to solve these problems. So it applies to all the sectors, financial, banking. Uh, we will be talking about cost management, security, compliance, policies, automation, all sort of things. They are applied across the market, across the industry. So you can see later on, you can go through it where exactly which sort of domains this project is useful, and a lot of other areas in terms of e-commerce, healthcare, banking, retail, where it's useful. So the project we are trying to bring is a bit of generic in nature, which can cover those concepts you can apply in any industry. And obviously, we keep it open. We don't. We will have question answer sessions during the project, after the project. Every week when we start session, we will open up for questions before we get into the next sort of activities. What you have learned from the past week, what if you have any questions from the past week, those sort of things. It's not, the idea is that even though we will try our best to cover everything, but the success depends on how well you understand it. So if you have some questions, we will encourage them, bring them. We may not know the answers right away. We will try our best to answer here in the stream, here in this session. But if we are not able to answer, we will answer it in the subsequent session. So that sort of open culture. Just keep yourself mute throughout the session, but when we open it for questions, just make notes of it so you can ask all the questions. So that it's not an interruption to everyone. We will open for questions every half an hour, 1 hour, and then obviously the next sessions you can always have more questions. So any questions so far? You have any doubts that you want to clarify?
There have been a couple of questions on chat, but I believe nothing is outstanding in there. But if there's anything, feel free to ask it.
Sorry guys, my name is Vikram. Can you hear me?
Yep, Vikram.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry guys. Okay, so I have a question actually. Because I didn't join the project 1 and project 2. This is the first time I'm joining, so the meeting and also following you guys. So I have a lot of questions actually. So let's say because we do have a limited time session for these 2 hours. So if let's say I have more questions to be asking you, I shall WhatsApp you guys personally, because if let's say I require more attention, more information, can I do that actually? Just want to double confirm.
If the questions are project specific, yes, we encourage asking in the session itself. Yeah, I know it's scheduled for 2 hours, but it can take 3 hours, 4 hours. If you have time, we also have time. Don't worry on that. We will try our best to answer. But if there are two basic questions where you have to go back and learn something, and then you will understand those concepts, we'll tell you where the gaps are.
Okay.
If it is relevant to project, we encourage it asking in the group itself over here, so that if those questions are relevant to others as well, not everybody is able to ask questions sometimes. So
Yeah.
they get benefits also.
Okay. Can
Keep it
so
relevant.
if yeah, correct. It's all about the project only. So if let's say out of the session, I do have questions, I do can buzz you guys personally also, right? Regarding of this.
We prefer in the group that we discuss in the group itself. Personally, taking calls and all would definitely not be feasible for us.
Not
So
for
that
maybe I can just
yes,
message you
that's why the
guys.
group is. So WhatsApp group number 3 that we have for participants, we will open it for
Okay.
discussions. We will see if people
Okay.
are able to help each other, answer each other, that kind of thing. Then we don't have to interrupt. If everybody is struggling, you need clarifications, then obviously we are always there to help. So group
Okay.
number 3, which is our project group, WhatsApp group, we will open it for everybody. Again, request, keep it relevant in that group. Don't forward any irrelevant stuff. Keep the discussion short. If you guys have to, in project 2 and 1, we have found that people do Zoom call outside of the group. Like for example, somebody stuck in Jenkins setup or some basic stuff in those projects. They would help each other outside of the group, and that's the way they have been helping each other.
Okay.
If you help people, you have some clarity. I'm sure other people will come forward and help each other. That's one way we have seen.
Okay. Okay, Ken.
Sanjeev, like, are we going to like what type of application will be using for this project? Like, is it Kubernetes based or?
We'll talk about it.
Okay, okay.
We'll talk about
Sir,
why
I
we're
have one
talking
question.
about the application today, because before the application arrives, there are other things to be done.
Okay.
Right? When you build a house, we don't start with what windows, what doors will be used. We'll talk about the root, the foundation, and how many levels there will be, and based on that, you will design the overall house structure.
Okay.
Then we will talk about what apps, what sofa, and what windows.
Sir, I have one question.
Yep.
Sir, we'll follow your lecture. I mean, we will do together with you, or after your class we will do.
After this class, if we do it now, people will be at different levels and it will be a chaos. It will be very difficult to manage. You guys follow this, do it in your accounts afterwards.
Thank you, sir.
Right now, focus here on the screen, on the conversation. I'm sure there are a lot of experienced people as well in the group, people coming from our mentorship groups. I know people have extensive experience, so they will add a lot of value to what we are talking. So that's the biggest part. So from mentorship, because we are talking to them on frequently week to week basis, we have quite experienced people, and they will add a lot of value. So just follow the conversation. Try to avoid distractions during the session. So you are focused on your screen. Have pen and paper for asking any questions later on, or making some notes as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hi, Sanjay.
Hi.
Will you be correlating on to the AWS only, or in particular, or it maybe you'll be correlating to the GCP and as well as Azure?
Right now, main focus is on AWS.
Yeah, when the things happening, right? Can you be correlating whatever the words
Yeah, we
or
can.
terminologies?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Hi,
right.
Sanjeev.
So
Yeah, I have one question.
yes.
Yeah, are you also discussing the project requirement, scope of work, or just starting with the development?
We'll discuss as we progress. We will talk about requirements. We'll talk about those things as well. Yes. Yep.
Hi, Sanjeev. Sanjeev, I have a query. So, are we going to discuss the entire low-level design and high-level design? And
Yep.
are we going to into the troubleshoot part of the project as well? If we're going to get stuck somewhere in various aspects.
That's what I mentioned to one of the previous question. Because we have a WhatsApp group, we will try to help each other if we are stuck at certain point. And that's how we will progress. If everybody is stuck, there is no way forward, then we will jump on to resolving that issue.
All right.
The
And
challenge
also,
is
like,
that everybody will be setting up in their own environment, in their own because we keep it generic, we don't specify very low level details that do it on Windows or do it on Linux, this version, that version. So you are free to try it on different version and different platforms. So that make it quite difficult to debug everybody's issues.
yeah, here comes the question now. So if we're going to use different tools as we like, is there a way that we can decide on like which tools? Because as an architect, would be requiring to understand like what tools brings you what.
We will tell you what we should be doing, but we will not restrict you. we encourage open culture. So if, for example, we will be doing it in GitLab, you are free to experiment and do it in GitHub Actions. That's what we have seen in project 1 and 2. The concepts remain the same. We will be not working very closely to a specific platform. We will be demonstrating in a specific platform, but if in your company you use GitHub Actions or you use Jenkins for that matter, you can still implement that. You're free to do that sort of interchangeability of certain tools. Not everything. Obviously, it's an AWS specific, so some of the AWS services will be used. Some of the concepts. Main idea is that we are working towards concepts, the processes that are followed in the organizations, not so much on tool specific. That's why we don't publish a lot of tools knowledge, tool specific stuff, that we are setting up an organization now. Now, there could be different tools, technologies, processes everybody would be exploring. So we will give you a lot of options. We will have extend targets that, okay, we have done this, how you can take it to further next level and spend some more time and build that project and make it even more complex. So we'll talk about all those things.
Last question from me. So as we have seen that companies use multi-account and multi-cloud as well. So when getting into a project, how would we gonna decide like which services we are gonna pick from which cloud? So are we gonna look into that part as well?
Multi-cloud, we will not look into that. This is a multi-account, multi-environment project that we are dealing with. We will get into a bit of, we'll talk about some scenarios where how we can use certain Azure services and where we will use them. And that's one of the extended goal we have also. But we will not talk about choosing services across accounts, and that's not the objective of the project.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Maybe we do a project 4 later on in future, which talks about multi-cloud.
I'll look
Right.
forward
We
to
have to be restricted by some scope, by some target. Otherwise, there's like it's limitless sort of options there.
Absolutely, I understand.
If we go to
Thank you.
multi-cloud, then we have on-prem setup, then we don't have any sort of limit to it. All right. No more questions.
Hi, I have one questions. Are we going to cover AWS Control Tower as well, like to set up a multi-setup environment, or any other things we are going to use it for that to set up a multi-account environment in AWS?
That's what we will be using. That's one of the objective of the project.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question here. Should we implement with by using Terraform or any IAC tool, or only by from the console?
We will discuss that. It will.
Okay.
Let's get into the project. Any questions on the process? Anything else?
Sanjay, there is a question from Aditya in chat.
Last 2 minutes, guys. We'll then move on to the project. Otherwise, most of the questions those will be answered as we go. That's what I understand. Aditya has question. Can you please provide the headline of the project and the key points related to it? What we have to put in our resume. Sorry, my mic isn't working. We'll get to that, what we have to put in resume. And towards the end of the project, we will talk about how you have to build that story, what you have to speak in your resume, what you have to speak in your interviews. All that will follow. That's why have patience. Let's spend next 5 weeks officially, but we can extend it if needed. And and as I mentioned, it's part of the mentorship program as well. So we will be discussing on this topic for quite some time. We will explain you how you have to put it in your resume, what that headline would be, and how you would explain that. All that will follow. Okay. With that, I'll stop the streaming on YouTube, and then we will have a private Zoom session. All right, guys. Just a bit of break. It's summertime here in Sydney, so gets very hot. Okay, just presentation again. So yes, we will be using AWS Control Tower to start with. That's how we will be working and managing some of our accounts in the AWS. So what we have seen is people usually work in one single account. They will have the root level privilege. At the max, they will do is they will switch from a root user to an admin user, and that user will have all sort of permissions. That's how they will practice in their accounts. Now, this is where people need to understand that in a real organization, there would be more than one account that they would be using. There would be accounts per project usually, and even at one single project level or a business unit or whatever sort of segregation you have, there would be accounts for your development, there would be accounts for QA staging, prod, etc. So different layer or different SDLC phases of your project, you will have different accounts created. Now, account creation in AWS is sort of free of cost. You don't have to pay for that. And there are a lot of other benefits of using services like AWS organizations. So let's take a look at one of the account. So I'm logging into one of our account, which is DevOps and Cloud Labs with my username and password. This is one of the master account that we are using. And our requirement or the company that we want to set up, right? So as I mentioned earlier, the organization setup requires a broader mindset. You instead of you start talking about the application, you are talking about just a single application in that. There are multiple applications in the in the entire organization. There are multiple projects running in a company. Every project uses different sort of services. So before we talk about whether it's a Kubernetes-based company or whether it is what sort of project or product this uses, our objective as a cloud engineer, we have been asked to set up the organization in such a way that multiple applications can land on this. Multiple applications can be built and deployed in this entire organization. So how AWS envisioned this is, instead of comparing it to a house setup, they usually compare it to an airport setup. So they talk about landing zones. They compare it to airport in a way that before your flights arrive, before those operations can be done on any airport, which is equivalent to your organization, you would be setting up a lot of other practices where the ticketing system would be, where the baggage, where the runway, where the taxi area, where the takeoff and landing area will be there for a flight, and how the security will be managed around it. What if it has to be expanded to a terminal 1, 2, 3 kind of airport? So that's how their marketing team envisions this. They came up with a term called a landing zone, basically, in cloud. So their idea is that before you bring your flights, before you bring your applications, you have to set up your landing zone first. And for that sort of activity, they suggest that using Control Tower is one of the service. But before we get into all that, let's look at holistically what we're going to look in the overall project. So yes, Control Tower, but that's part of the project. what the entire project will look like is this is what we will cover. I try to, put together a single slide for this. And this is how you will start building your story. Obviously, we will we will be refining this story, but this is, you can say, a trailer of it, that this is what we will be building. So we are going to set up a multi-account, multi-region SaaS company in the cloud. Part one of the project would be setting up AWS control tower, single sign-on. We will probably look at 3 different accounts, dev, QA, prod. We will look at cross-account access, role-based access across different accounts. We will look at how we can bring proactive controls, reactive controls in that, how we gonna use service control policies when we are trying to control access to your accounts, the different services that we are setting up. This is part one of the project. So we will be, before any application arrives, we should have controls in place that if anything goes wrong in our account, we should be alerted, we should be aware, we should be monitoring certain tools and frameworks that we can come to know easily. That is part one. Then part two is we get into a bit of application setup, but even before application setup, we look at, for every application, what sort of infra will be required. So for example, instead of deploying a complex application, we will first try to deploy, understand what sort of branching and merging strategies the company will use. We will try to build a basic pipeline, which will deploy maybe a VPC subnets to all our accounts and all our regions. So we will have multiple accounts, we will enable multiple regions, and we will deploy pipelines, we'll deploy basically just VPC and subnets and internet gateway and 3-tier sort of subnets to all our accounts and all our regions. Very standard way. So people know that VPC is called this much, it will have these many subnets, the private public subnets will be available. And then we will probably, at that stage, we will start looking at, we will procure a domain for our company. We will finalize a name among ourselves. We'll buy a new domain, because people usually don't do these sort of activities. One, it costs money, and then second, it gets complex. And then we will set up the hosted zone for that company in Route 53, and we will create certificate for that. Because when the company has to arrive, it has to be authenticated, it has to be secure, it has to be having the right certificate. Certificate is one way to prove that you own the domain or you manage the domain. So again, it is also, I would say, a basic setup that we will be doing. Then we will be talking about monitoring compliance. How do we monitor these accounts? What additional services we need to enable? Control tower is just part of the game, right? Control tower can give you some feedback. You can enable certain controls in control tower, but there are multiple other services as well, which give you a lot of detailed feedback, like trusted advisor. What else? Biggest of them is the security hub. So we will look at security hub in detail. Within security hub, there are multiple lenses that you can apply. Then it can alert you, it can tell you what sort of issues are there in the account, issues at what resource level. So if your S3 bucket is having issues, your EC2 instance is having issues, any AMI that you are using having issues, it will be able to drill down, tell you issues about that specific stuff. Then we will try to perform some sort of well-architected review of this entire setup before an application starts coming in. So we'll try to perform a review of our setup based on the AWS suggested guidelines. That's our part 3. Part 4 is where we will deploy our project, where we will deploy one of the application across multiple regions. We will talk about what are the issues in multi-region setup. We will discuss what is the devil in the overall process. We will talk about a lot of deployment strategies here. What are the possibilities? Where can you use services like Global Accelerator, where you can use services like Route 53, what sort of policies you should implement so your traffic can be routed across regions, and load balancers and basic stuff, EC2 instance and other stuff that you guys are very well aware of. and we'll have a final demo of that sort of thing. So we'll see in the final demo, we'll see people within the group. They will try to access the website from US, Europe, and say Australia and different regions, and they will get a sort of different flavor of our product. So that would be the entire setup of the base structure, the controls, and the multi-region app deployment that we're talking about. And then after this, you will be able to build a very good story. You will be able to justify that you have set up sort of multiple account setup for a company, and you have deployed their base infrastructure, deployed their security products, you have performed their reviews, you have done audit for that company, and then you have deployed applications to that. Is it now making a bit of sense what we want to do? And it's very hard to explain this in the TalkMate or in any other platform, right? Because we will be doing so many things. We're not talking about we're not talking so much about the tools and technologies here. This is how a company is envisioned. Before a company lands, before a product they build, certain things have to be done in advance, and then you can be adding on top of it. You can be adding multiple other applications of that company. I'll take a pause. Any questions so far?
Nothing much on the chat.
All right.
So you will be covering all the interview questions which will come up for these projects.
We will be covering what?
The interview questions that will come up for the project.
Yes, we will be talking about all that as we progress.
Hello, sir. It's me, Devbrata. So,
Yeah, hi, Dev.
we are going to use Terraform or any other tool for ISC.
Yes, we will use Terraform.
Okay, so by the Terraform, we are going to make in all account VPC and subnets and all related stuff which needed for this project, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay, so part 1 of the web series, multi-account. And there could be issues as we go. There could be problems that even my account has. So we will try to debug those sort of issues. Because when I'm working, it's a brand new setup that we have. Sometimes there are issues. Sometimes things don't work out. So if that happens during the session, my idea is that instead of taking you through the presentations and talking about this stuff, let's do some hands-on during the session itself. Let's do some activities in the console and try to learn, and at least take a view or take a look at the console, what options are possible. The landing zone that I talked about earlier, AWS envisions this as a sort of airport setup. Before your applications come, you need to do some sort of activities. And it's very common, like you speak AWS landing zone in your interview, that you have set up control tower based landing zone. Suddenly the interviewer will be sort of alerted because you have worked on additional things other than compute, database, and S3 and all that basic stuff. I have done projects, I have done consulting for a lot of companies, freelancing work where I have done these kind of setup, because companies, they want to move to cloud, but they don't have idea, or they don't know how dev QA prod will be envisioned and what sort of control should be in place. So AWS has a product called AWS Control Tower, through which you can generate this sort of airport-like landing zone. So you can provision through Control Tower. So Control Tower is just like another product you have other options as well in this, but that's the main product that they use, and it's because it's AWS driven. It is versioned product, so it comes with its own version of Control Tower. So if you implement a version of Control Tower today, there's a chance that you may have to upgrade your version to that. So what happens in the Control Tower mechanism? You go to that product, you say that enable Control Tower in my account. And what it does is the root account or the main account that you have basically is called the management account that you have created, which will become your main account, you would say. Usually what happens, you ideally should not provision a lot of services in your management account. This account, main account that you create in AWS, mainly should be used for billing and setting up common services, maybe setting up of AWS organization and stuff like that. When you enable Control Tower in your account, it will create a couple of additional accounts by default. It will create a log archive account and it will create an audit account for you. And then you have the flexibility of creating more number of accounts that you can create for, say, project 1, project 2, project 3. Project 1 has dev QA prod, project 2 has dev QA prod. So you can create n number of accounts. That is the sort of setup that AWS recommends. Management account having sort of common services, mainly having AWS organization and Control Tower in that. Couple of accounts get automatically created, mainly to store some sort of logs and audit information. And within these accounts, you will probably bring in security products or those kind of auditing products in your in these accounts. These will be automatically created, and then you have the flexibility as admin to go and provision more number of accounts. The benefit you get is sort of consolidated billing. You don't pay for individual accounts. The entire thing get consolidated and you get the bill in the management account. But if you are not using extensively these accounts, there's not much of charge, but you wouldn't learn so many things unless you do this sort of activity. So now this takes a bit of time to set up a Control Tower. Takes quite a bit of time, of approximately an hour or so. So what I did was I had set this up earlier and I recorded a short video of that. So I will just take you through that short video so that you know that when I show you my account, there are certain activities already done. And you will see that if you struggle doing this activity, we can jump on and do it. But it's very difficult to do it live in this because there will be a progress bar which will tell you that, just wait for some time and it will be progressing through. So I just recorded that. Let me see which software I can use to play that. Okay. I'll play that short video, roughly 2-3 minutes, and I'll speak through what I'm doing. And then you guys will get an idea how to set up a Control Tower in your organization. In fact, before that, I can probably show you how it looks like so you know how I went about it. So this is where I'm logged into my account. I went to Control Tower. You can do it in the master account, main account that you have, your AWS account. It will take me automatically to you can do it only once in any one of the region. You don't do it across multiple regions, etc. Within this, you can enable multiple regions, but you will go here when this is not set up. Then we go back to video, and this is how it was when the account was not set up with Control Tower. So I'm logging into the account, same account. Now if we log in, we'll go to Control Tower and see how earlier it used to look like. than how it looks like now. So log into control tower, set up landing zone, because nothing was set up earlier. This is to set up and govern your multi-account AWS environment. It's automated. A lot of other benefits are there. You can take a look some of the benefits, and we'll talk about that. While this is not charged, but because it will create some sort of buckets and some additional things to log, you might be charged, but it's not very expensive. Probably $1 or $2 in a month is what the charges are. And we can have what regions we want to govern. So we can select maybe 1 or 2 regions for now, and we can add them later on as well. It's not that done and dusted that this is, we can deny certain regions that we will not be using certain regions, but I'm not doing all that for now. All this can be changed later on as well. And I'll share this video as well in the group. So these are some of the foundational stuff. OU, so OU is a term they use for organization unit. This I will explain this. So security and sandbox is what. This is foundational security where audit and other accounts will come. Logs and audit accounts will show up. This is required. The name, you can give any other name. The other sandbox is sort of optional. You can later on delete it as well. Sandbox is where your accounts will come in later. So you create a log archive account, and you guys know that for creating every account, you need to provide an email address, a unique email address to your stuff. And this is where we provide our one of the email address. Oops, I think I made some mistake. Let's see, is it just account? Needs an email address basically. You guys can follow it, right?
Yes, Sandeep.
Yes,
So
Sandeep.
I was
Yes,
wondering, said something about sandbox. I couldn't get it.
So sandbox, I'll show you when the setup is there. Sandbox is basically where your accounts will show up later on. Your playground, basically. And it's optional. We usually don't use sandbox. We start with our own OU. So you can use the plus notation. We don't have to create multiple accounts. It goes to DevOps and Cloud Labs and other.
Sanjeev, just normal doubt. Like, did you start this in your root account or which account
Yes.
it was?
My main account, my single account, which has the billing and everything, that will become my master account. And but not with the root user.
Okay. No,
Because
okay, got it.
admin user, which is Sanjeev, admin user in this account.
All right, understood. Thanks.
And you can give, I know.
That means it has the administrator access, right?
Yes, it needs the admin access. Yes. Behind the scene, it's creating a lot of cloud formation and stuff, creating new accounts for you. So you can follow the plus notation, and all the emails will still follow in the, come in the DevOps and Cloud Labs at Gmail. That's how Gmail gives more than one email account for the same account.
When we want to do by alone, if I face any problem, how can I solve it?
We'll see the problem, and then based on that, we'll investigate.
Okay. No, you told right now we don't to do. After class, you will send us a recorded video, then we will do. So that's time if we face any problem and we cannot solve it, then how can I solve it?
You will discuss it in the WhatsApp group that
Okay.
if anybody also facing this issue, most likely you will get resolutions there. If nobody's able to respond, that's when we will jump onto that issue. But as I mentioned, it's not gonna be like real time sort of thing. It's me and Saurabh, 2 people. So we will respond whenever it's possible. Best, if best is to resolve within the group. There are 100+ students learning there. So I'm sure if it is not too basic, if you say that I'm stuck and I don't know what to do, then it's a problem. That's what I encountered in one of the project. People said, I don't know how to start. I know nothing. Or then nobody comes and helps because they don't know where to start, right? You do
Okay, thank
something,
you.
you paste specific issue, you say that this is what I tried, this is what is not working, then people are usually ready to help because then they also want to learn, right? So they would want to jump onto your Zoom session or team, Google Meet, whatever you set up, they will try to help. But if somebody says, I have no idea what to do in the project, I don't understand, then nobody can help in that scenario. Then you have to
Thank you,
watch
sir.
the videos. If it is too basic thing, you probably have to watch other YouTube videos, other content to get more clarity around AWS accounts, organization, control tower, and stuff like that. But you still get the idea where you lag, where you have to learn. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
we'll provide some email addresses of the logs account.
Hey, Sanjeev, do you have that many email addresses before before you use it here?
That's what I explained. You don't need multiple. You need just one.
Okay.
Plus audit@gmail.com takes you to the same email address.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, in this process, we are also setting up AWS IAM Identity Center, and we will talk about it, what it is. It's basically single sign-on in AWS. So we'll talk about this service as well today.
So you are going to explain a little bit about single sign-on.
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever I know, otherwise,
yeah,
we'll jump into the conversation.
Okay.
Can you also use the same email format for an Outlook mail?
Yeah, you can use any of your email. You can create 3 email addresses, or I don't know if plus notation will work in all platforms, but it works with Gmail.
Okay.
Do look at these optional settings as well. You can have different logs created, which you based upon your company and stuff. Some of the organization would want to retain the logs for say 7 years. Banking and healthcare, there are requirements that you will maintain the logs for quite a bit of time. Anything happening in your accounts for future records, that's where they'll move it to S3 Glacier and other services. So you can do those kind of optional things here. I'm not doing all that and just going ahead with the basic things. So one home region, Sydney, any no deny. I have set up security foundational OU and a sandbox OU. And I understand what the implications are and set up my landing zone. This is where then it takes roughly an hour or so for the overall process. You see, it takes 60 minutes to complete. That's where I pause the video. It's trying to create 2 organization units. One is for security, one is for sandbox. That's when I pause the video, and this is when this was done. So this is what the message. So I haven't deleted this message yet. Once this is deleted, then it won't show up again. We'll discuss on this. We'll start from here. So it has created 2 OUs, 3 shared accounts, select created identity and access management configuration, and it has created 20 preventive controls and 2 or 3 detective controls, 3 detective controls. We'll talk about these next. email addresses that we provided. Everything is compliant, everything is all good. This is how the organization looks like.
So each landing zone would have its own IAM organizational
No.
setup.
The entire landing zone is at per organization level. So you can say, yes, one. It's a shared, like at each account level, you would have one. So it has created audit and log archive accounts.
So
Sandbox.
from your management account, you will not have any IAM. It is inside the landing zone, each account, basically.
Yep.
Right, Sanjeev, in a situation where someone already has some of these set up, so AWS organizations, single sign-on, maybe one or two accounts set up manually without using Control Tower, do you know what effect it has if you run the Control Tower process?
Yeah, so that's again very common, right? Very good question. Every company will not start with Control Tower. They would have already progressed. These are the questions which are very important, right? So I would love that that sort of discussion. So Control Tower, yes, you can set up Control Tower. It can pick up your existing organization that you have in the account, but it will not bring all the accounts and what do you say? All the accounts under the Control Tower management right away. So it will start with a similar setup. It will create two additional accounts, but there is an option where you can invite those existing accounts, those existing setup into the Control Tower. So you will start with a blank Control Tower, and then you start inviting accounts.
Okay, so it will take note of the account, but it will not manage them until you invite them.
It will not manage them automatically, yes. Because it creates certain roles and certain things in the other accounts as well. So for it to manage, in case you have to invite an existing account, you may have to create a role in that account. So, and then give this AWS account permissions across accounts so that it can perform those activities. Everything is role-based driven. Everything is permissions driven. So unless an account comes under Control Tower management, it cannot do anything.
All right.
And I will show you now. Now I will show you where my how does this looks like in the current account.
Okay.
You followed that. So I didn't click this message because once I close this, it's gone. So your landing zone is now available. AWS Control Tower has set up the following things: 2 OUs, one for shared accounts and one for accounts that will be provisioned by your users. That means you. 3 shared accounts, which are management account and isolated accounts for log archive and security audit. We will look at the security and log archive accounts in the third session, maybe. We'll go further deep down what they are, what do we do with those accounts, and what kind of information that they can give. Your selected identity and access management configuration, the AWS SSO that we discussed, 20 preventive controls to enforce policies, and 3 detective controls to detect configuration violations. This is the biggest, some of the, very frequently discussed in the interviews, and one of the biggest outcome as well from here. Now, the question that you asked, enroll existing accounts in AWS Tower. You can enroll existing accounts from your AWS organization in AWS Control Tower and manage them in the same way that you manage accounts created with Account Factory. Some additional work is required for enrollment. Some additional things, as I mentioned, you have to give permissions, and there is a process to follow that.
Okay.
Sanju,
Thank you.
Sanju, the two OUs you're creating, it is part of the AWS organizations, correct?
1 second. Sorry, 1 second. Saurabh, I hope you are recording this session, right? Oh, thanks. Yes, Ram, you were.
Yeah, the two OUs, it says the message, two OUs are created as part of the control tower setup, landing zone setup, but it doesn't say, is it they're part of an AWS organization?
Okay.
I'm
Now,
assuming, yeah.
close this message. We
Yeah,
all
in
have
the top message. Yeah.
So now we go to our organization. This is the root of the organization. Just forget this one for now. This is what I created later on.
Okay.
It basically created this sandbox, but there is no account under sandbox. And then this security. So it created an OU called sandbox and OU called security.
Okay, got it. So yeah, so they're part of the one organization, correct? AWS organization. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you. Does it create any SCPs by default?
It does, yes.
Okay.
So now we look at all these things in correlation, that there is control tower, and you can think that control tower is at the top. Underneath, there is an organization that it's managing. This is how your organization looks like. Just ignore this part for now. This is what I created afterwards. So this is our management account. This is our main account from where we started this process. And look at this 9850. 9850. This is our master account. Management account is what it's called. Usually, as a best practice, there will not be any cloud services in this. You will not be creating EC2 buckets and databases and stuff like that. All the things you will be doing within the other accounts. So what we can do after that, it also talked about certain preventive and other controls. Let's look at those controls. So there are a bunch of controls. There are 521 controls that AWS provides. Very, very important to learn. If you can talk about 10, 15 of them in any of your interviews, talk about how you control that. It will also tell, explain you what AWS basically recommends doing. So at your house, right? Like you have constructed a house or anything that you have done, you would set up certain rules that to enter to this house, you need keys. You need keys for each and every bedroom or every room or that sort of thing. The windows will have this sort of control. Similarly, AWS has defined those controls for every service that they suggest. And that's where the crux of AWS best practices, everything is hidden. Not all these controls are very straightforward to learn and understand, but focus on few specific, focus on these different categories. So these are all 521 controls, very hard to understand. For example, Amazon API gateway related service, what AWS suggests is require an Amazon API gateway REST and WebSocket API to have logging activated. This is what it suggests you doing, and you should establish. So if this control is enabled in your account, it's a proactive control. It will ensure that it will enforce that you should do this sort of activity. So there are proactive and there are detective controls, and how they are different is proactive controls will not let you do certain activities. It will not, if you allow a proactive control, say an EC2 will not have a public IP address and you enable that, you will not be able to assign a public IP address to an EC2 instance. But it falls into a detective control basically. It will say it will allow you to create a public IP address to an EC2 instance, but it will say that your account is now not compliant. It will detect that issue and it will inform you that issue. That's how these controls. So I would suggest look at these categories first. All controls will not make so much sense. All those controls are divided into these 15 objective. So just then read about it, like how would you encrypt data at rest? Now it will start making sense. All these 65 controls will be for encryption at rest. Let's see. Amazon EFS is something people will probably relate. Elastic file system should be configured to encrypt file data at rest using KMS. So if you select this and you enable this control in your organization, basically it's enabling of the controls. You will not decide all of them yourself, what to be done, but you should be aware that these are the things possible. If you enable such a control in your organization, and if it's a detective type, which means it will allow you to make mistakes. But if you have a EFS volume, which is not encrypted using KMS, it will say that your account is non-compliant. It is not meeting the standards. That's how you start thinking. That's how you bring control. That's how you bring, security and other things in your account. You start to look at these controls, understand your business requirements, talk to your security architects, talk to your security team, talk to your operational team, encourage them that AWS suggests these good practices to be followed. You don't have to know all of them, at least 15, 20 related to EC2, S3 buckets, EFS, and these volumes, storage, database, RDS. These are the common things that you should be aware, and you should look at those sort of things, and try to look at a bit of mix of detective and proactive. Proactive will actually not allow those activities to happen. So if you enable a proactive control and you say that a load balancer should have access logs enabled. Now, access logs is an optional feature in ALB, but if you enable that, which AWS suggests doing, then you will not be able to create an ALB without having access logs enabled. So that sort of power it brings, and you can do it all from your main management account. You as a cloud engineer, cloud architect will define these policies, talk to the stakeholders, define those controls, and implement those controls. And then in your dashboard, you will be able to see if your accounts are compliant or not. As soon as something goes non-compliant, you enable a control, but something goes wrong, then that will show up as non-compliant. Because this is a new setup, there are not many resources in this. I don't see anything non-compliant as of now, but as we progress, if somebody invites existing accounts, then you will see that a lot of non-compliance is there. And if you, even within these, if I enable all the controls, by default, it has only enabled 20 preventive controls and 5 detective controls. But you saw that 500 plus controls there. Even if we enable all of them, I think even in a new account, it will find non-compliance stuff. So get some idea about the existence of these controls, and the control tower allows you to enable those different controls in your organization. And you can enable these. You can look at them by services, but these are same controls. These are all controls, and these are different categories of those controls by objective. What is your target? You want to reduce network surface area, or you want to improve your cost optimization, or your secrets management, and that sort of thing. But overall, these are different categories. You can look at which service for S3, what does it recommend? For EC2, where is S3? Okay, this is what.
Sanjeev, where do you see the distinction between the preventative and the detective controls in the list? Let's say I want to see what are my detective controls.
You see, these are all controls.
Yeah, how do you separate them? Protective, you said, right? Preventative and versus detective. Does it distinguish? It doesn't look like, right?
No, it doesn't distinguish. No, one control is either proactive or detective. It's
Correct.
not you can enable a control based on your choice. No.
I see. But my question was, let's say out of all this 521, I want to know what are my detective controls alone.
That you can either filter. It's not a very intuitive and like if it allows you to see all those things, you see if you do it filter by behavior, you
Yes,
can
okay.
first detective but there will be a lot of limitations in this product. It does not offer
I see. Segregation of that.
yeah, it's not very clear. Like sometimes, for example, I want to search something for S3. It's not very clear as to what I'm searching and
okay.
But
Fair enough.
as I mentioned, it's a version product. It will evolve.
I think all the logs like Cloud Trail and all, they will fall into detective most likely.
Yes. Okay. Usually most of them will be detective in nature. You will not enable a lot of, unless it's again, business driven basically, but most of the time I have seen, detective controls to be implemented, but you should be aware that there are preventive controls as well.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So what did we learn? We learned about control tower, the organizations. We haven't set up any account. We haven't done any fancy things so far, very standard stuff. Control tower setup. We looked at all the controls. We know how to enable certain controls. We can look at within the control tower, we can look at the organization. We can see what is being managed. When something goes non-compliant, that is where things will be fancy. That's where it will say enrolled, but it's non-compliant. That's when you will reach out to as a cloud engineer. You are managing your clouds, right? You are managing the accounts, infrastructure. Your job is set up those controls and then let the company, let the application teams build the infrastructure, and then you keep telling them, no, this is what you did wrong. You have a S3 bucket, which is exposed to the internet. Everybody can access that. Anybody can read from here or write to that. You just keep telling them, creating tickets in their backlog, or you have an EC2 which is compromised. You have a VPC which has this flaw. That is the role of a DevOps and cloud engineer. And for that, we're talking about a simple setup, right? We're talking about thousands of AWS accounts. How would you manage them? So interview will not ask you directly this question. Have you worked on AWS Control Tower? Have you worked on AWS organization? They will ask, you have 1,000 accounts. How are we going to manage them? How are you going to find which is compliant, which is non-compliant? What is your strategy? That sort of questions, and somewhere in between these questions will come up in the interview, not very direct question that do you know control tower? So then you have to say that, okay, multiple accounts, so many accounts, you need to implement control tower, you need to implement controls in your control tower, proactive, detective, you speak this language, automatically you move up in the value chain. The interview will become serious. They will be aware that you are talking business, you have done this sort of activity. Not everybody gets to or works on these sort of things. So that's the idea. Okay.
Sanjeev, I think we can pause and take some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Tarun had a question. He was having difficulty in understanding why do we actually use control tower. So Tarun, is your answer clear now? I think there's been a lot of explanation now.
Yeah, no, not yet. I have some doubt. like we also have IAM users, right? But using IAM users also, we are using multiple. I don't call it as accounts, but yeah, multiple users. And in the account also, in multiple account also, we are having different users. So how it is different from this IAM users?
Okay. So if you have, think of a scenario where you have 1,000 AWS accounts to be managed, or say 100 or to be managed, which is common, right? One application will have dev, QA, prod, 3 accounts. Company has 20, 25 products to try. They have these many accounts, maybe a 1,000 employee company. They have these many 100 accounts to manage. If you have to follow the IAM process, you would be creating IAM users in each account. You will probably have to remember passwords and all that sort of thing for every account. Or you will be setting up very complex mechanism how people can get access to those accounts. Is that what you are talking about?
See, here also in multi-account, we are controlling the, I mean, in IAM users also, we can control what one user can access and what cannot. And
Yes.
same thing goes in multi-account also.
Yes.
So how it is different? I mean, why it is needed when we are having, when we can create multiple IAM users, then why we are using this
Because
multi-account?
here you will not use multiple IAM user going forward. We will see what other benefits it brings. Here
Okay.
you are centrally managing all these things. If you can do it in a complex way, you can always set up multiple users across different accounts and give them different user ID and passwords to manage. That sort of thing is doable. But you know that's not the way to manage, right? There are issues.
Okay.
And then the level of compliance, the central control that this brings, then this has its own advantages.
Okay, one more question. Like, say in multi accounts, when we are setting up this multi account using AWS Control Tower, some resources get created. So, is this resources? I mean, one resource for all the user, all the accounts, or it is different for all accounts? Like, suppose one S3 bucket got created, is it single S3 bucket for all the accounts, or
There are
it is
multiple
like?
things. You probably wouldn't even know there are multiple things that it would have created. It's very hard to,
Okay.
even AWS has not given all those details, what it creates. But at very high level, you should understand it has created those 2 accounts where the centralized logging and auditing information will be going. So it would have created behind the scene buckets for that. It would have created roles that these accounts can, put that information. So if something we are doing in main account, the audit will go into the audit account. So that data transfer, that data writing, those capabilities it has put in place.
Okay.
And then it would be creating, we'll see when we start creating more accounts, it will create additional roles in different accounts.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
like for there was an account like DevOps Cloud plus logs. It is for only logging purpose. Like it will, this account can only manage all the logs and monitoring
Well,
activities, right?
can can be misleading. AWS suggests that audit and logs account should be used for audit and logging related services only, not for your EC2 or for application. That is the
Okay,
recommendation.
yeah. Now,
But
yeah, now I got it.
technically, you can actually go and provision EC2 also.
Okay, please, I have one question. Still regarding the user account. I noticed when you were logging into the main account, you log in as an IAM user account. Well, however, and then you created the control tower under that main IAM user account. But my question is, for example, if you created an AWS account and it's a root user account, can you just go ahead and create the control tower under the root user account, or you need to create an IAM user account before creating the control tower?
Again, this is not this project specific. Again, a basic AWS recommendation: you should not be using root account for any purpose. You should only be using root account for those administrative activities which other admin user cannot do. So day one, when you create your account, you just set up MFA for your root and just sort of have that password in mind and forget about it. Create an admin user that will drive all other things. That's a basic stuff. So technically, you probably can use root user, but you should not. That's a basic AWS recommendation that AWS suggests, not to use root user for any day-to-day activities.
Hi Sanjeev, you said that accounts are compliant and non-compliant, right? What factors comes under compliant and non-compliant? For suppose like if the EC2 instance in that account was not patched properly, will it comes under non-compliant state?
You will have to look at the controls. What controls you have enabled for your organization. Patching related controls are probably not covered in this this sort of 521 controls that we have.
Okay.
Because control tower will not know what is the right version that has to be patched. And this is where when I say that we will look at the third session where we will look at Security Hub and Trusted Advisor and other services. Once service cannot answer all your compliant needs. So this has these 521 controls. This will look at services. This will look at scenarios like if an EC2 has a public IP address, a bucket is public access is enabled. Those are the common sort of scenarios, which is at very high level. Look at the service, look at the features enabled, and see if you can prevent that if these are non-compliant. So if you have enabled any of such control, that is where it will say it's non-compliant. Whether the EC2 instance is patched to a certain level is probably in additional services. You need inspector, you need Trusted Advisor and other services.
Okay, thanks Sanjeev.
Hey, Sanjeev, last question. Let's say I know when you create a landing this control tower, it created some account structure, right? Root account and also some security and log accounts. What about the workloads that, let's say I have a team of developers who want to create some development.
That's what we'll get into that.
Okay.
This is the default setup that comes out of.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you.
Sanoj, most likely
Sanjeev,
you'll be
I have
adding
a question.
Yes.
What is the real benefit of using a control tower? Like, to give an example, say I have, say an organization, I have different business units within that. Now for each business unit, I can create a subscription. Okay, so that the billing goes to the exact business unit. And I create different VPCs under that, say a management VPC or a non-prod VPC, a prod VPC. And I place different resources into that. For example, let's talk about management. So I'll have my, say, vault under that, which is used by all the other, I do a VPC peering. So that, okay, I have a vault which is under, say, management VPC to a non-prod, wherein I store all my secrets into the management vault. And since I have a peering, so the connectivity is seamless there. Yep. So what is the benefit over this setup that I just explained over using a control tower?
Okay.
Because when I saw that, it leads to a lot of confusion when I basically use a control tower.
We'll have to discuss, like we have to look at the option that you have. I haven't understood entirely in detail, but the benefits that control tower brings is two main benefits. One is compliance. You can enable control at different accounts, different accounts have different needs. A dev account will be flexible. Prod account will be tightened. So you will enable more controls for your prod account, and you will see compliant and non-compliant status, and you will say, okay, it's dev account. They're probably doing something. It's fine. It's prod account which has a non-compliant. You will probably be more alert. So that level of information at one dashboard in thousands of accounts.
Okay.
It's not. Other setups will not give that kind of information. The second use case that they have, the biggest, another one, like it's quite big, is the automation of creating the AWS accounts. So Control Tower has a we'll look at creating other workload accounts. We'll look at that next. So you will see that we are doing some steps manually. Some organization want to put a process in place. Like for example, for one of the organization we implemented was we looked at Control Tower, and through APIs and through Terraform, we can automatically create accounts. So they have the approval in Remedy or ServiceNow or Jira, and you have once the final approval is in place from financial point of view, your account gets created. So teams don't have to wait for that. Otherwise, teams have to raise tickets with AWS or the cloud team, wait for their accounts to be available. Teams wants to be agile. They want to, okay, we need a POC account. We have all the financial approval. That itself takes quite a bit of time in certain organizations. They don't want to wait further. So you can automate that process.
Thanks, Sanjeev.
But yeah, there might be other benefits, other things will come. We'll discuss all that. And the AWS, not Control Tower, but organizations have benefits of consolidated billing and all sort of thing. And then organizations then allow you SCP policies at different products and different projects. So if one project needs more flexibility, you can have that flexibility. They want to experiment with, say, machine learning and data science and AI related projects. So you can allow them. But if it's a simple project where they are using EC2 database, you can control through, or that's not the feature of Control Tower, more of organizations, but they are sort of attached. Control Tower is just sitting on top of organizations and managing them. So that's how these things are linked. Yes, Atanu, you have some question?
Yes, Sanjeev. Hi, Sanjeev, with respect to the AWS Control Tower and AWS organization, what is the difference between those two? Can I say that AWS Control Tower is automated fashion we are creating and vending all the accounts, and in AWS organization we are manually, if you don't want to use AWS Control Tower, can we use only AWS organization to create the accounts and map it?
Yes,
Okay.
interesting question. Yes, we can do that. It's not necessary to use Control Tower. We can use organizations. That's why in the earlier question mentioned that organization will still allow you consolidated billing, still allow you a bit of account creation process, but it will not give you the automated account factory process. It will not give you compliant, non-compliant status in the organization.
So, Sanjeev, coming back to that, so which is it's depend upon again the organization which they want to adopt. They want to go with the Control Tower, or they want to
Absolutely.
go because
It's a very small company, 5-10 accounts, startup, or very basic, early in their progression. Go with organization first. You don't have to jump onto Control Tower. Control Tower is slightly more suited where compliance is your prime importance. Look at some banking, financial companies where security and stuff is most important. They will definitely look at Control Tower kind of product. And then obviously Control Tower is at top managing organizations underneath. So you can't have Control Tower without organizations. You can still have organizations without Control Tower.
Got it. And cost wise, I think Control Tower have some cost which you mentioned in earlier, but organization, if I use organization alone, so organization will have any cost on it, or it is
I
free
don't
of?
think so. I don't think so. There's cost associated with the organizations. No. Even control tower as such, using the product, there is no cost. But because it adds additional features like creates some buckets to store the logs and stuff, that's where the cost is. It's not much, like probably a few dollars. That's it.
Got it. Thanks.
$1
Thanks.
or $2. Exact information you guys will know, but it's not that much. Because
Thank you.
bucket storage and these things will not cost much, right? It's only when you get into compute database that will start costing. So both these products are per se zero cost, but underneath they might be creating certain services which will cost.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjeev.
So Sanjeev, do you see a scenario where you have a multi-organizations under the one control tower? Is it? I know it's some.
No, haven't seen that. I don't
Okay.
think so it's possible. No.
Okay.
Don't think so. Within same organization, you can have different OUs. So you
No.
will.
I'm asking the. Oh, okay. I'm asking multi-organization level
No,
itself.
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you can only enable one organization in an AWS account.
It makes sense. Thank you.
So this is what you will also see the organization view in the control tower also. So these are very related. Organization can be used in standalone, but control tower will definitely have an organization, but it's exactly the same replica. Changes that you make here will reflect here, and likewise. So what else we wanted to cover in this? We looked at this security stuff. This is what I created extra after that video was done. I basically wanted to try out few things before things we get into this session, but we'll create more accounts as we go. So we will take this email address and we'll say add an AWS account. This is where we will start. You guys can see my screen, right? This is where we will start creating more AWS accounts. So we are adding a new AWS account. There are no costs associated. It's all free of cost. Create an AWS account, will be added to your organization. Let's call it QA account. We'll follow the same standard. We'll have DevOps and Cloud Labs plus QA Gmail. Now look at this, the IAM role. The management account can use this IAM role to access resources in the member account. Now this is important. This will basically control tower will create a sort of role in the new member account that it's going to create. A member account is an account that you are creating. So there is a master account and then member account. So master account where you have set up your control tower, you are now creating a new member account. And this is the role it will create in that account that you can then later on assume and work with that. So let's create this AWS account. This will take a bit of time. It's creating a new AWS account for us. I'm not sure, did we select an organization, or let's see where it gets created eventually.
So this is where we give the admin role, right?
This is where we have given a role which this user can, anybody in the master account can assume and log in there.
So I have a quick question actually. So suppose I have already another AWS account. So can I add that account here?
Yes, I explained earlier, right? That you might have to do extra activities. There is a process. So once you do that, it will prompt you that do you have more accounts to be added?
Okay, so whatever account is creating right now, there will be separate. If I want to log in that account separately, I can log in that account, right? There should be a password and something
You will
login.
log into that account. You will follow certain steps. You will create that role that control tower needs, and then you will invite that.
Okay, one more question actually. So for
Yeah.
complaints, how could I decide that that complaints needs for this project and that's not needed? How could we decide that actually?
That's again, I mentioned that briefly. You will not decide as a DevOps and cloud architect. You will have some point of view. You will reach out to your security architects, or depending upon the kind of company that you are operating, you will come to a conclusion that these controls have to be enabled. You will look at start enabling controls.
Okay.
That's not something we can finalize here, or like you can do it in your day job. It's a collaborative thing. You will be talking to teams, you will be understanding, you will have a say that, guys, no public IP address on EC2 instance, no bucket being public, that sort of thing. So those are some of the basic, at least understand 10-15 such controls that you really understand, that you can talk in the interview or in your day-to-day job. But understanding all of them is quite complex, and you will basically do them when you really have to do them. So if you have to manage, you have a task that, or we are starting Amazon API gateway or something, and we are starting to use this service, then you will trigger that, okay, we need to look at enabling extra controls for that sort of thing.
Okay, good.
So we have this email coming in just now. So a new account getting created, QA. And it says welcome, and free tier will be accessible, will be applicable for this account. So I think you can use this as a free tier account for next 12 months from the date of creation. But just double check all these fine details. But it will not ask you credit cards and other stuff, and which you would need in case you are creating a new account regular process, because all that has been done. When we created this account from a root user, that's where we have all the credit card and other stuff, payment things are already informed. Because it's consolidated billing, anything you are doing in this QA account now is the responsibility of this account. I think it might be done. Okay, so since we created an account, it has created outside. It has not created in the startup OU that we have. So we can move this account to our startup OU. So we have all the flexibility basically. Now, how does our organization look like? So we have this startup, dev QA. So this is one example. This is one OU that we created. We can create more OUs if we want to. We select root, and create new organization unit. So if you start a new project, something like project 2, then you can create a new OU. Right? I'll just avoid that. Then another OU will show up under root, and you can move your accounts here and there as per your requirement. So now we have this new account created, which is QA with this account. Let's see if we can log into this account. This is where it gets tricky. So we'll switch role. You guys have used switch role, right? This is the role that we are planning to use. And say this is yellow. This is a display name that you can use. This is the role that Control Tower informed us that this is the role it's going to create in this account that we can assume. If this works, then we are in QA account. Obviously, this account does not have organization information, so we'll not be able to see everything here. But if we go somewhere, we are basically inside the new account that we created. I think it should be free tier. This is the new account. And we are currently logged in as organization account access role. So whatever that role provides permissions, we will be able to follow that. Let's launch an instance. Let's launch T2 micro or T2 nano. We will probably not be logging into this one. If we don't need a key pair. We don't need all this. Launch. Right, this is standard. We created in the Northern Virginia region. We are able to launch EC2 instance because probably our role allows that. This is the EC2 instance, and it should be in running state shortly. It's pending, but yeah, shortly it will be. Why we are doing this, there is a reason, and we will later on discuss. So now I want to switch back to, once I click switch back, it takes me back to my master account. And I can close these things. So we have to now, because we are in an organization, we have to look at where we are logged in. So now I'm in my member account, my master account, logged in as myself. All the actions that I will do will be recorded as Sanjeev. All the actions that I do in the other accounts will be logged as Sanjeev, logged in as that specific role. Similarly, I created a dev account for testing earlier. So if I log in, I can now switch from here. We don't have to do that switch role again and again. AWS will record that information. We don't have instance with that name. We already have a different T2 micro running, which we can terminate. which is in the dev account. So oops, this is what we did for other project. This is again, I'm back to my master account. So basically at high level, what we have done is we have set up this landing zone. We have set up a management account, our master account. We have set up some additional stuff, some security OU, which has audit and log archive. And we didn't use sandbox OU. We used our own startup OU basically, but there's no, we can always use that sandbox OU as well. Right. And we have seen logs and audit accounts. We'll probably, I think dev and QA is good enough for us to start our activities. We will, when you are creating, you can always create a new prod account as well in your account. You can create 3 accounts. Double check if you get free tier per account again and again. If that happens, then you have a free tier account created for you. I think it should support free tier in new accounts as well. Because for AWS, it's a new account and it has the benefit of consolidated billing in the master account, but still from an AWS point of view, it's a new account for new purpose. It will still support free tier. And if that happens, then you can always create a small T2 micro or whatever free tier supports, and you can create multiple such accounts in future. Creating new accounts has no cost associated. Okay, let's take a 5 minutes break, not more. I'll just grab some water and then we'll pick up from here. Meanwhile, keep your questions ready, and then we can take them. Hi, everyone. We'll take some questions from the chat. Why we created EC2 instance and then deleted? Yes, Saurabh, we deleted in dev account. That's something I created for testing that I have some permissions I can do. And we created in QA again for testing that we are able to create account EC2 instance in QA. But there's another objective. What's the exact difference between AWS OU and control tower? Okay. AWS OU is capable of handling all these features, then why we need? I think we discussed this already. OU is not control tower. OU cannot. OU is, if you are from that Azure Active Directory world, you know that, right? Organization unit is basically a hierarchy in one subset in that entire chain. So OU is basically your one collection of projects. So for example, in your banking, there is a separate business unit at your company. They can fall under one OU. OUs are part of the organization, and it's just an organizing process. And control tower is at the top of the organization, so it's different. It adds additional value. They are not same. If they were exactly same, don't add any value, then obviously your question is right, why we are using them. Okay, any question on video? For the emails, when just reading in the chat, for the emails when configuring the shared account, do we have to create a separate? Yes, we need separate email address. So we used cloud and DevOps and cloud labs plus logs plus audit, something like that. So the email that we got today for QA account, I got similar emails for those accounts as well. Okay, no more questions. We will move on. So we looked at all the controls. We can enable and disable different controls based on what we need to do. We looked at the organization unit, the organization as such, and we looked at compliant and non-compliant accounts, how they look when we start creating more services in these different accounts. Non-compliance and stuff will, that will start to follow. There is one thing I will show you this one, right? You can see my screen, right? So we see that QA account is not enrolled in it's only created in the organization. This is where the difference starts to come in. Account is created in OU in the organization, but it's visible in the control tower, but not enrolled under control tower. So we can just go ahead and enroll this account. We can say enroll under startup. So you see, it tells us, do you want it in the sandbox? Sandbox is something similar to what we created as startup. So it's basically for member accounts to show up. So we say you manually authorize account. Yes, enroll this account. Again, this process will take quite a bit of time. It will bring it under control tower enrollment and will start monitoring this account as well for compliance and non-compliance purpose. Okay, so this is how at very high level, we understand that how these multiple accounts are created. Those multiple accounts are categorized in different organizations, how proactive and reactive controls are assigned to these OUs. And we have to understand that once an OU, entire OU level controls are assigned, then they flow to their subsequent accounts as well. And this process will take time. Is enrolling our QA account, so that will take time. we understood that there are additional accounts created, logs, and audit. We will look at them in the third section. We will enable some certain services like Security Hub, Trusted Advisor. We'll see which account is better suited and what AWS recommends for enabling these additional services. Now let's take a look at SCP policies at a high level. Now we have created these accounts, but we saw that we are able to do all the activities in those accounts. We created an EC2 instance with probably public IP address and all sort of things. Now, public IP address part will be captured in the controls that we enable. We will be notified if we enable that control and that instance has the public address, then it will show as a non-compliant account. But what about, there are concepts like SCP policies that you can enable in your organization. Now that's another very interesting feature of AWS, and again it's very useful when we are looking at multi-account setup, because SCP allows us to control these accounts even further. So let's take a look at these policies. And policies, just like any AWS policy, right? Just like bucket policies and IAM policies are nothing but JSON objects. Some of them are automatically created by the organization and stuff. And here we have created a deny EC2 policy. Now this is interesting, right? This SCP policies are just like preventive and detective controls. SCP policies are blacklist and whitelist kind of policies. So when we look at these policies, right? So there are two approaches to it. We can either blacklist certain services or we can just allow certain services. So for example, there is a scenario where we want only specific services to be used in an account. Then we can just enable those services. But again, what happens, like if you just enable certain services, like for example, you just enable EC2, then EC2 creation, you will also be creating VPC, subnets, security groups, and NACLs, and all sort of additional services associated with it. So doing this progressive addition, or making these services enabled through SCP is a slightly complex process, and you will eventually fail at some stage. To create certain service, you need other services to be enabled. So the usual approach is blacklisting of services, that you will allow everything, do everything what you want. But if this is a dev account, I don't want you to create M5 large. I don't want to create complex machine learning, AI ML kind of projects. So you will basically, the good use case of SCP that I have seen implementation is blacklisting of services. So you will allow everything and you will start blacklisting certain services. You will say this project does not use AI ML services, does not use very large instances. I will stop them. So that's how we should use, we should be aware that both these options are possible. We can we can progressively start adding certain services and remove rest of the permissions. And we can also look at blacklisting these services. So this full AWS access will basically, let's look at this service. So this is the full AWS access services, which allows to all of these accounts, that whatever we created, even QA account that we created, it allows everybody to do everything in that account once they have permissions. Obviously, you can control a lot of things through IAM and other stuff as well. But from SCP point of view, everything is allowed. If you want to control in that way, that you want to progressively add, then you will come here, you will remove AWS full access, you will detach this policy. Now nothing can be done in this account. And then you will progressively add, okay, EC2 can be created. But EC2 creation, you also have to allow VPC, subnet, security groups, NACLs, and all I don't know what all other services are possible. So you will have to do a lot of such process. But the usual approach that I have seen, they allow everything, allow full access, don't detach it, but whatever you want to deny, you start adding those services as well.
Sanju, this is opposite of principle of least privilege, right?
Yes,
It should
yes.
be, you should default deny, and
Yeah.
you should.
But there is a challenge with that, right? If you default, you deny everything. This is one layer, right? You will have security at different layers. From SCP point of view, by default, everything is allowed. And then you start adding. If you remove this policy, then your AWS account becomes non-useful. You cannot do anything. And if you, as I mentioned, if you start adding these services EC2, then you have to understand tens of other services that you will allow.
Okay.
So people don't want to do that kind of overhead. You can from that least from that principal point of view, but that not applied here.
Right, right. One thing related to this, there is something called service catalog, which will allow, these are my approved services for this team. I mean, see, these are a set of 20 services or 50 services, where in an organization, because you don't usually in organization, any new service that needs to be vetted and approved explicitly. Okay.
Yeah.
So we should create an inventory of approved list, and then you should whitelist only that, correct?
Yeah. So again, I haven't used that service that much. My understanding is that that's more, again, fine-grained, probably more suitable for some sort of SaaS applications that you have in your inventory, like Atlassian products hosted, or which you have procured through AWS Marketplace, or that sort of thing. I'm not across using service catalog that much.
I see. So,
But
so you're
again,
saying, yeah.
That is again a way to offer or whitelist certain services.
I have a question here that is actually full AWS access is already inherited from the root. Why I need to attach it again directly?
Excellent question. Excellent. Yes. So SCP policies, yes, your root account has allowed everything. Was it on the previous screen visible?
Yeah,
See?
I can see.
Yes. So your root account allows full access does not mean that your QA account will also allow full access. It is the which is the lowest where you will allow. So even if you allow root layer full access and you get rid of this one, your account is still not useful.
Okay.
But it's a union of these two that that gets applied. It's a union of these two. That's why you will see full access at each layer.
Okay.
And wherever the chain is broken, that means you will not get access in that at that layer.
Okay, makes sense.
So if, for example, a very common, if some account is used only for RDS related services, then you will detach this in, for example, it was not a QA account, it was a DBA account. You will remove this full access and you will say, you will create a policy which only allows RDS access, and then only RDS can be created in that account.
Okay. Although the full AWS
Although
access
the
is...
root will allow full access,
Okay.
your
Okay.
firmware will allow full access. It is the union of these two.
Okay.
Union or like whatever mutual exclusive, or which is the common between these two.
Okay.
That's why usually people don't change too much. Like they will say, okay, allow everything, but I will attach another policy. I will say deny EC2. So root will say full, startup OU will say full access. Even our this has full access, but we also have a deny EC2. It's a simple policy. You can create more fine grain, better controls around it. And it will say EC2 instance, I'm not gonna allow QA account to create EC2 instances. Now, this is the reason I created the instance earlier. Now, since we have applied this, let's see if we are able to create instances. Now, we are able to create EC2 instance or not. Again, it may fail, I don't know. It may backfire. I haven't tested this part. EC2. The reason I'm saying it may not work because we're not using control tower in this process as of now. It's ideally it should work, but because control tower also has a provision of which region we are managing, which regions we are managing through control tower. Not every region you have to manage. So, but we are not bringing control tower into this. This is more of a AWS organization feature. There you go. This is expected, right? So we only denied EC2 instance related stuff. So it was still able to create security group and other some of the things that it would do before creating EC2 instance. That's why I said progressively adding services is very difficult. For EC2 to work, you need to allow other stuff as well. But blacklisting is much more easier. So you are not authorized to perform this operation. Sanjeev, with this is blah, blah, with an explicit deny in a service control policy. Right? So you get a message like this. Usually you don't do it for EC2 instance. Just for an example, I brought it here. Usually you will say this project not uses any machine learning or any larger instances. Now, again, cost optimization. This is security. This is you have better control over your environment. You can restrict the larger instances to be created. It's a POC account. You allow only basic, nano, micro, medium instances to be created. If some application team needs bigger instances, let them reach out to you. You will refine the policy. That's where you will, as a cloud engineer, cloud architect, has more control over your account. And these sort of things, not only for security, can be used for cost optimization as well. So you can talk about this use case that you implemented SCP policies which did not allow creating large instances in the account, and that's how you control the cost of your account, your environment, and projects. What other use cases? Very common use case is to have a tagging policy there. So you will say attach a tagging policy. You will get it from online or ChatGPT somewhere. You can say give me a tagging policy. You can attach that policy. So your instance will be it will allow you to create instance or bucket, but you will have to put tags. It will enforce you that you put who is the owner of this, whatever tags you specify in that policy, who is the owner of that instance, which application is that instance is used for, and some of the other things. Again, you can relate this kind of information to your cost optimization use case. You can say I built the automation which will not allow me to create instances without tags, and I can control cost through this process. Okay, I terminated this. So this is why I created. Earlier, it allowed me to create an EC2 instance. After adding a deny EC2 policy, it did not allow me to create an EC2 instance. So we can build on top of this use case and use it for tagging and use it for all other purposes, basically to understand SCP policies more in detail. And somebody try out, get rid of the AWS full access, log into a QA account, and you will see you won't be able to do anything. So now we have next level of control in our account. We have control tower driven controls, 516 controls through control tower. We can enable them based on our discussion with the application teams, security teams. We can enable a lot of policies in this. And that's another way of you having more control. So I will detach it, otherwise it will prevent us to do anything much in the organization. And you can build different versions of these policies. Right now we have like deny EC2. You can build like deny EC2 in these sort of accounts, deny EC2 for some specific accounts, or deny buckets, deny this, that. You can create different versions and assign them to different OUs basically. So you have this master account, you have this dev account, QA account, prod account, and you can apply these policies, different policies at different accounts, and you can apply them at organization level. You can apply that at root level. So you can apply these policies at different levels, and then all the accounts and things under that will follow that. So slightly relaxed policies at the top and more fine-grained, secure policies at the bottom. You can say dev account, smaller instances. Prod account, yes, you might need M5 or your auto scaling. You will allow a lot of other policies. This is how you control your and accounts much better. Any questions on this? Okay, so I hope people will understand and they will try it out in their accounts, and that's how you will probably learn more. Now let's take a look at the other service that Control Tower enabled in our account, which is Identity Center. Earlier it used to be called AWS Single Sign-On SSO. Now it's called Identity Center to compete with Microsoft Azure or other such products. Basically what happens is that even in this current setup, my account had to be created. If I have to give access to Saurabh or other people to work in this, I will probably have to create IAM users and stuff like that, right? We understand that you can only have 5,000 IAM users in an AWS account. So if they have to come through master account, I can only have 5,000 accounts created. Sometimes my GitLab and CI/CD process will also need some accounts. So 5,000 is not such a big number for large organizations. So, and also they can't create IAM users all the time, right? So they need some central way. Usually that central way is Microsoft Azure directory, their Active Directory, or in the cloud or on-prem, wherever it is. That's where the users are most of the time, I have seen. AWS has a simple identity center that instead of what happens in the Azure world is that you create your users in Azure, you assign them to a group, and the group has certain, you will set up as trust between AWS and Azure through the single sign-on or through the Active Directory process. And that's how the users typically log in any corporate world. Now I'll leave that for a extended goal. If somebody has access to Azure subscriptions, they can try it out, their standard process. But AWS has a similar sort of product, IAM Identity Center, where instead of you creating users in the IAM policy, IAM area, you will be creating in the identity center, and then that's how you will be granting access to them. And you will see that you bypass the limit of those 5,000 users. This can have probably 100K users created in the IAM identity center if needed be. And once you add them to the group, then automatically their permissions are defined, and you don't have to do like give them selectively permissions to everyone. It's currently configured in Sydney because our control tower was in Sydney region. And this was automatically created by control tower. So this is the URL for our for accessing the portal. And here we have to understand the concepts of, I created a couple of users before this. We have MFA enabled on our in our environment, so we'll probably have to enable MFA, but you don't have to if you are practicing in your environment. So it's entirely up to you how you have configured. We have the concept of groups. Certain groups were already created for us. I have created another group called developers. And then there is a concept of permission sets. What sort of permissions do you allow to a specific group or person or something like that? So permission sets, you can create your permission sets if you want to. So for example, create permission sets, predefined permissions or your own custom permissions. Let's say predefined. Oh, sorry, let's take a look at custom permission set. And you can apply AWS managed policies. This is those list of policies that we all are quite used to seeing, right? Admin permission, S3 bucket and EC2. And that's how we basically are trying to add more controls in our environment. So instead of giving administrative permissions, let's look at something like S3 full access. And we'll say next, and we'll give a name S3 full access, and that's when it will be created. That's when it will be created. I have already created a permission set. I'll show you. It's an S3 full access, same thing that I created. This allows 12 hours of session. I created it yesterday. And it has a permission of S3 full access. Just understand this bit for now. S3 full access. You can name this something else like a developer or some other name that you want to give it. And that's it. Now we are back. So we understand we have a concept of user, groups, access, permission sets. Let's create a user now. A user joins our company. So obviously his onboarding has to be done. Ideally, it will be in Active Directory, but now since we are considering Active Directory as a competing product, we are creating that user in the identity center. Let's say demo 3. Generate a one-time password for that user. You can give it any. This email will not be verified. demo3@demo.com. Demo3 user. Oops. Yeah, you can give more other details if you want to. Probably not needed. And we'll say add user to the groups. Add user to the developers group. So this got created. And the developers group have the associated permission set assigned as S3 full access. So basically now we can send this user that this is how you log into access to this portal. You have this demo3 as your username. This is your one-time password. This is where it gets tricky because we have enabled MFA in our accounts. I need to pick a MFA app. I'm using my phone to verify the MFA. Oops, didn't work out. I'm scanning again. Okay, I got this in my authenticator app. 455-519. Okay, I have to create a new password. Oops. This is logging in with the new password and the code. So I think it logged me out right away. Cool. So demo3 user and has access to S3 full access. That was the name of the icon. We can call it developers or something else. And with that permissions, this new user got created. So that's how we will control access. If it is a developer role, needs EC2, S3, and certain roles, we can manage that. Same happens in Azure directory. We create the user in Azure directory, assign it to a group called developers, and within AWS, the developers group is configured to grant certain access. And that's how the user logs in for 12 hours into this account.
I have a question here. Should I need to configure this everyday basis, like it will be expired after 12 hours? So
Yes.
what should I do if I need to do it again for the second day, third day, likewise?
So usually this is to work in your console and log into portal and do certain things. But if you have to, like for example, use these credentials in your CI/CD pipeline, then you will use those long running credentials, etc.
Okay. So what is the use case of this identity center actually, basically?
So Identity Center, the biggest use case is that it is allowing you to create users in Identity Center, which does not have a limit of 5,000 users. And you don't have to create IAM users. We never created an IAM user for this user. We created a Identity Center user.
Okay. For a specific time period, right?
No, 12 hours is the amount the user will be logged into and will be not logged out automatically. That is, for that short duration, he has been granted certain access, but that doesn't mean that every 12 hours he has to talk to admin and get access. He has to re-log in.
Okay. That means he is permissible for 12 hours to do
Yes, he is
operation,
eligible
certain
for
operation.
every time 12 hours, yes.
Okay, every day. Okay. That means admin does not need to create
No.
these things. Okay.
That's the
That
session timeout
session.
duration.
Okay. Got it.
And because we had only S3 bucket permission allowed for this user, and why I kept a smaller range so that we can see it easily in the demonstration. S3, he will only have S3 full access. He can look at buckets. He can create buckets.
Sanjeev, let's say these users, they have to perform certain actions, which requires, through CLI or SDK. Do they have to, you can create a access ID and secret access key for them?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
That's their secret ID. And
I see. Okay. So how do they protect these keys in general? What's your recommendation to protect these two?
that's again not specific to this this project. That's in general what AWS recommends. Use short running credentials. Try to give role-based permissions to your instance. So if your services, rather than relying on these sort of credentials being shared.
Right, but if they want to do CLI or they want to sign those API calls, they need this, right?
They need this, yes.
Yeah. So
there
my
is
question
no.
to you is there any vault or something like that they need to use to protect these? Because that can be stolen. Those two can be stolen, and either somebody can use EC2 for Bitcoin mining or something like that.
Just like any other secret, right? Any
Right.
other RDS or any other secrets, yes, they can go into Vault, your secret manager, your
I see.
pipe can pull them from where you want to. So, but again, those are other things, other standard stuff, what you would probably do with your secrets. Long-running
Okay.
secrets have its own problem and different ways to manage it. First, you will look at, do you really need them? Second is, if you really need them, how you can secure them. Does your CI/CD platform offers that sort of, when you're making API calls, like GitLab, for example, or Jenkins has some credentials or Vault storage. GitLab has similar process. So they can be a good place. You can mask them, secure them. Or the best solution is obviously to put it into a Vault or a secret manager
Secret
product.
manager, either
Could
one.
be
Yeah.
AWS secret manager, or could be HashiCorp or Vault or something, and you will pull them on the fly. And
okay, sounds good. Thanks.
so EC2 all permissions.
Sorry, sir.
S3 all permissions, but EC2 0 permissions.
Sorry, everyone. I'm sorry. My name is Ike, and I'm actually connected from Canada. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much, sir, for making this possible. It's a big privilege for me. Unfortunately, my time zone is not so comfortable, but it's fine. We're happy to make the sacrifice. I only just woke up. It's 6:30 a.m.
Mental work.
Thank you, sir. And on my side here, so my two questions are: I've missed a lot because I just joined. And it's 6:30 a.m. I want to know what time it is over there, so I know what time to always join every Sundays. That's my first question.
Yes, next Sunday it would be 4:30 p.m. IST. So we usually give one standard time, even though we are not in India, but we refer IST as standard time. 4:30 p.m. IST is what you should look for Zoom call information in your WhatsApp group.
Okay.
And that's when we will start.
4:30 p.m. IS time, I would say to Calgary time would be 4 a.m. my time. Okay. Okay. And my second question and my last question for now would be, would the video be sent to us so I can catch up on it?
It will be recorded, and it's being recorded. It will be published to everyone. Yes.
In the same WhatsApp group that I got this link from.
The same WhatsApp group. Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. God bless. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi Sanjeev, what makes the difference in identity user and IAM user?
Okay, so for that activity, you need to understand that IAM users have certain limitations. IAM users are usually account specific. Identity users, now you are able to grant access to multiple accounts, you can control them like this. Let's take a look at other options. So basically, at high level, you understand that IAM users have certain number limitation. First of all, 5,000 users can be created. Second, they are not the way to create users. Your users will usually be in certain, your users will be in some Active Directory, some external space. Could be Azure, could be Okta, could be other service providers. So you need a way to federate your access. You don't want AWS to manage that most of the time. So Identity
can I
Center
say?
is one such product for demonstration. Again, this is not extensively used, but it gives you a flavor that how you can do certain activities from a central location.
So Sanjeev, can I say Identity Center is the IDP solution from AWS?
Yes, it is an IDP solution from AWS. That's why they changed the name to SSO to IDP. It's a competing product, not extensively used. You would still be using Azure Active Directory most of the time.
Thanks, Sanjeev, for answering my question. Thank you.
Right now, that user had probably just main this account access, then we can. This is how I created the developer to have the full access permission. So it gets a bit complicated sometimes. Again, I haven't used this extensively, but wanted to give you a flavor that your users will not always be managed in the IAM. They are going to be managed elsewhere. You will not be creating IAM users. They will be using certain roles to switch. They will be using AWS through a sort of single sign-on portal link, and that's how they will get access to multiple accounts. That's the overall idea that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, it takes quite a bit of effort to do it with Azure. So I have kept it as a stretch goal. There are a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of other processes that somebody can set up an Active Directory in Azure, create a sync trust between AWS and Azure, and then eventually target is that you create a user in such directory, whether it's IAM Identity Center or Azure, assign it to a group like developers, and whatever permissions you have given to developers should automatically flow to the user. That's all we want, because there are always going to be a manual process or some process where users will be created. Only thing we want is once the user gets created, once the user is assigned to a group, we don't have to do anything. Everything is then set up automatically. That is the idea. All the permissions are predefined. All the accounts that he has access to is predefined, and that's it.
Hello, Sanjeev, Deepak here.
Yes, Deepak.
So the user that you have created, demo 3, so which role that user has?
So that user has taken a specific short-term role, which only allows him to have S3 permission.
Okay, but do you have any name for any that role? Suppose I want to give that user one more role. Where can I give it, or is it possible to give it?
It should be possible. You have additional roles assigned, and you can assign them multiple roles like developers. And based on that, AWS will create a short-term 12 hours short-term role for that user. And then that's how that will get access. So there won't be a specific name given to it. It will be dynamically created. That's where service short-term credential service comes into picture.
Oh,
STS.
Okay.
Hello, Sanjeev.
Hi.
Please, can you share little lights on the billing aspect of this multiple accounts and security structure?
Sorry, I didn't get billing part of it.
The billing, yes, the cost implication.
So cost-wise, what we have seen is it is not just control tower. AWS organization allows you to create multiple accounts, but the master account is responsible for managing all the billing aspects of it.
Okay.
And so a consolidated billing will be visible in the master account. Read about other benefits of it. So for example, in certain cases, the organizations have purchased a fixed capacity with AWS. There are agreements with AWS on fixed capacity that I will be using 20 CPU capacity for the entire month. Now, it's not possible to use those many EC2 instances sometimes in same account. So a consolidated billing also means that if there are benefits associated, if you have purchased a benefit with AWS in cost optimization area, then that get consolidated. So if you created those instances elsewhere in other account, then you will not be charged for that because you have committed certain compute to AWS. So
Okay.
those things also get consolidated, reserved
Okay.
instances or uh, that sort of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Kaushik, till what time session will go on? I think this is what we wanted to cover in today's session. We wanted to cover multi-account setup and how to bring some sort of controls around it. It's through control tower, having additional controls around it, having uh, policy-based controls, and having an identity provider associated. So you don't create IAM users all the time. You basically going to be creating users in an identity provider. It could be AWS identity provider. It's very easy to practice with this sort of setup. We are not creating IAM users for demo. It's an identity center user, similar to Azure user. And then based on the permissions given, a role will be created, a temporary short-term credentials will be created, and that's how that user will be logging into that role. That is pretty much I wanted to cover. Couple of things I have left. 1 second. Okay, some of the extended goals that I could not cover, or it will be difficult because I'm not across Azure so much nowadays. We can do this setup with Microsoft Azure as well. So we create users and groups in Azure, and then automatically their permission. But understand that this is possible. If you watch a video or something, you can follow that easily now. Now, earlier I mentioned that you can automate the creation of. We had to create a user or AWS account on the console. Usually AWS recommends that do everything as code, infrastructure as code. So Terraform has a account factory process, and AWS has its own approach. So look at these two approaches. Just get an idea. You probably don't have to. If it is not used in your organization right now, just understand that there are possibilities. You can create automation where you will be providing account name and email address, and rest of the things will be created automatically for you. Just understand about this. Once you are done through this process, just get an idea about these extended goals also.
Hello, Sanjeev. I got a question.
Yep, go for it.
Hello, Sanjeev. Yeah, I'm like a fresher. I just got a one question. You know, the SaaS setup we did now is it's basically in a DevOps model, right? Not in a cloud support engineer model. Do you understand my question? This setup is basically for the DevOps engineers. The setup
Yes.
you just be done, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Is it for a DevOps engineer setup, or is it for cloud support engineer model. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. So this is
Thank you.
usually now there is a very thin line between DevOps engineer and cloud engineer. I don't understand that bit. Sometimes DevOps engineer is managing cloud. So these activities are basically managed by usually a central entity. Different companies will have different names for it. Sometimes the DevOps engineer is doing it. Sometimes the cloud engineer is doing it. Sometimes then cloud ops, cloud operational engineers or architects are doing it. So it all depends. But the idea is that there would be a team, there would be a person responsible for managing the cloud infrastructure.
Yes. Okay.
When he starts onboarding applications, if he's trying to enforce controls, he's trying to manage them, then this is the setup that he would be following.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Yogesh has question is landing zone a permanent construct to be persisted with even after the yes? We are creating one startup as one OU and dev and QA. You can have hundreds or thousands of such projects. So control tower will persist, will keep monitoring, keep managing compliance and everything. The accounts will have their own life cycle. Multiple accounts will keep coming under this setup. Yes or no? Hi, Saurabh. Can we use this identity user for code review so that he can merge the PR in code commit? We haven't defined what this user can do. That's entirely use case specific, what this user can do. If you want to use it for code reviews or any such thing, yes, you give it read-only access. You can. So for example, a lot of times security people in the organization, they need read access to all the accounts. So that they can log in and check everything whenever they have to. So yes, you can use this kind of construct for, but basically this is for your developers, QA, security, read only, write only, any kind of activities you are doing, building product, all sort of roles can use identity center kind of setup.
Yeah, I just raised this question. So I see in one of my they are actually
Yes, we can allow temporary login. I
are
can't
not
hear you, but I'm just reading your question. What's Account Factory all about? So Account Factory is again a fancy term given by AWS to say that how you are going to provision your accounts. So right now we did create an AWS account in the console. We filled in the email address and other information. And there are a lot of other information you can give tags and other stuff. And you click next and then it gets created. Then after that, we assigned that account to a specific OU. If you remember, we moved it to a different OU. Those are the sort of activities that you can do through automation. You can do it through AWS provided automation, and you can do it through Terraform also. So Terraform has a specific module for this, and AWS promotes that because AWS knows that a lot of people use Terraform. So you will see Terraform documentation being used at AWS website also. So that's what automation, that's what Account Factory is.
Yes, Sanjeev, in a real typical environment, in the organization, you have thousands of users. So you cannot, it's not feasible to create that many users even in the identity centers. Typically they federate, right?
Yes,
Whatever.
that's what I said.
So
that one of the way to federate in Identity Center, it's an AWS product.
yeah,
You would probably have them in Azure.
I see. But you don't create manually even with the Terraform. They just basically, yeah, okay.
Yeah, user creation, I'm not talking in doing through Terraform. It's the AWS account creation factories through Terraform.
But you created some demo 1, demo 2, demo 3. So you just for
that's
knowledge
they
purposes.
will be created in the AD
Right.
in whatever way they are being created. Some companies have automation. I think most of them will have automation.
Okay,
With
so
their Oracle, SAP, or wherever their user onboarding happens, how the Active Directory user gets created, that's something out of scope. Like that's something already being done in the companies. We don't have to track that or modify that, but we only want this once that happens, once the user gets created, role gets defined, so that he's a developer, he's a cloud engineer, or he's an operations guy or an architect, his permission should be defined automatically.
so the permission sets in the identity center can be applied to the federated users also.
Yes.
Okay.
See, these either you will be using Identity Center or you will be using Azure Directory and AWS together. You won't be using them together.
Okay.
These are competing and products.
Okay.
This is one of the option because it's easy to set up and gets created as part of Control Tower. So we looked at it. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't even look at this.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm reading questions. Sir, I'm new to AWS. Can I deploy AWS Control Tower and whatever we covered in this session using Terraform? So it's easier for me to delete resources when not required to avoid billing. Yes, you can use the factory method. That's in the extended goal. I have put documentation link, but I would suggest you do it manually first, understand it, then you try building it through Terraform. Can you give an overview of setting up monitoring on AWS Control Tower? We already looked at it, Abdul. We looked at how automatically there is a panel where you see which account is compliant, which is non-compliant. When you build it on an account that has more resources, you will see that there are non-compliant. By next week, I will try to bring an example where I'll show you one account is non-compliant because of certain reasons. In that view, it will also tell you because of which service or which EC2 instance or which bucket is non-compliant so that you can go and fix it. Durgesh has an elementary question. Can Control Tower be dismantled without affecting the AWS accounts that were created? Yes, it can be. It's a product. You can remove it if you want to. I have done it in my accounts. But what happened in my in one of the POC account, I tried because it was costing. I ended up creating a lot of services to practice. And then the dismantle process failed somewhere in middle of the process, and it wasn't costing me. So I'm not able to enable that control tower again in that setup, but it's not charging me as well. So it's a tricky process. Technically, it can be, but if you fail, then you have to reach out to AWS support. That's the only way, because if it fails somewhere, something happens, I just couldn't fix that. But because it was not costing me, and I don't have to enable that again in that account, so I'm not able to enable it again, and I'm not able to get rid of all that UI. So when I log into Control Tower, it says that there was a previous version of Control Tower you enabled, which has some errors. So fix those errors. And to fix that, you have to reach out to AWS support. I never did that for a POC process. Yes, Saurabh. It's a complicated process, and usually you might have to get support. If the account is non-compliant, account owner will get the alerted through email, and is it configured default? Email alerts are not easily configured through Control Tower directly, but again, very standard process. You will probably have a Lambda function that will look at the status and have generate an SNS alert, which can be configured. So it's a bit of effort because there is no direct process given in this. Some of the companies will probably look at in the Control Tower, they will look at non-compliant and then find out which service and then reach out to the account owner. It's not by default, that integration is probably not there in the product, the notification part. No more questions in the chat. not going to start another topic, but this is what we will discuss next week, multi-region. So we will look at one specific account, say dev, start looking at multiple regions, probably deploy something across multiple regions using Terraform and GitLab. That is the objective for next week. And then we will purchase a domain for our SaaS company. We will create a hosted zone and we will create some certificates. So that's for the next week, a bit of overview, but we'll do it next week. Hopefully you will have more questions, you will have more clarity, you will do it in your accounts, and you will get more hands-on, more experience by then. Yes, Shrikant, that's not the right question. We still use Control Tower. Control Tower is to manage multiple AWS accounts. SSO is an authentication, is a way to log into those accounts. So you will not use Identity Center in that case. You will be using Azure Single Sign-On. So they both serve different purpose. Watch it again, this session, if there are any doubts. Next week, when we start, we will take up questions from the previous week's discussion. So whatever you have learned, you will be watching this video again. You will be doing hands-on. You will have questions. Next week, when we start multi-region, first 30 minutes, we'll not have that introduction sort of thing. We will not have the briefing as to how we conduct it, what's the benefit of this. So the first 30 minutes that today we spent on that part, that will utilize for the question answer part. But make it relevant, keep relevant questions. From where we can buy domain, can we use any free domain? I'm not aware. I know one or two websites where we can get it in $1 or $2. So we'll buy a very cheap domain for our startup. Please, how soon are we getting the recordings? The recordings will take some time. These are HD recordings or 4K recordings. This will be downloaded first. Assume a couple of hours to download for us. Then uploading will take a couple of hours. Then YouTube processes that. So they will be available in the next 10 to 12 hours at max for you to watch in full 4K HD quality.
So where are the recordings will be available, like YouTube or?
It will be on YouTube, but it will be a private link. So only the people who are part of the WhatsApp group will have access to it.
I got a question. I know I just recently joined the mentoring program as well.
Yeah.
I just want to know, I'm on to into, I'm on to in cloud computing or DevOps. So, can you have a one-to-one? I mean, like where to go, how to go about it?
You are part of the mentorship program?
Yes, yes.
So you should have access to our Slack channel.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So in the Slack channel, you will see a link where you can book one-to-one session.
Yes, I booked on 29th anyway. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Then we can chat over there. Okay.
Yes, that is your opportunity. You can bring your questions. You can bring your resume, your LinkedIn, whatever you have questions. We will try to give you a roadmap where you should be focusing on. Yeah.
Okay.
We will look
Thank
at your experience, what you have worked on.
Yeah.
It will not be a generic one saying that, oh, you do this for everyone. We'll look at your experience and then suggest based on that.
Okay then. Okay then. Thank you.
Please, how can I get added to the Slack channel?
That's a different program, our mentorship group. So we can share those details in the group. All right, guys. I think this is what we wanted to cover today. I hope it was beneficial for you guys. we did just part 1 today. We'll do similar sessions, 4 or 5 sessions, multiple question answers, ask anything, and we'll try to make it useful for everyone. People are waking up at 4 a.m. We'll try not to waste time on random stuff. We'll stick to the agenda. We'll try to make it beneficial for everyone. Thanks, Aurab.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, Sanjeev.
Sanjeev, can I private chat to you later? Hello?
Yeah.
Can I private chat to you later?
Can you? Private
Send
chat?
you a private message later.
Yeah. Please do that. Not today. It's 1 a.m. in Australia, so we will be
Okay, tomorrow.
After this. So, but you can reach out on WhatsApp, private message. We'll try to help.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Any project specific questions, first try to resolve in the WhatsApp group, and then if that doesn't get resolved, then we will take a look at that.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye everyone. Take care.